Sometimes the most terrifying predators aren't hidden in the shadows. They're closer than you think. And the victims disappear before anyone even realizes what's happening. The small town of Ashford, Pennsylvania, seemed peaceful on the surface. But beneath the calm streets and quiet neighborhoods, something sinister was unfolding. Families were left terrified. Whispers spread about young hunters vanishing without a trace during outdoor trips or hunting excursions. The first case emerged in early October. Michael Harper, a 27-year-old avid hunter, set out with his rifle into the thick woods surrounding Ashford. By evening, he hadn't returned. His friends assumed he'd gotten delayed, but as night fell, panic set in. Search parties were assembled, yet no footprints, no tracks, no signs of struggle were found. It was as if Michael had vanished into thin air. Then the second case occurred similar circumstances. Another young man disappeared while on a hunting trip in the same area. Over the next few months, 3 more cases followed. Each one shared the same pattern. The victims were experienced, careful, and always communicated plans. Yet all went missing in broad daylight, near frequented trails and hunting grounds. The local police were baffled. Search and rescue operations combed the forests, deploying trackers, dogs, and drones. Still, no substantial clues emerged. The community started to fear the forests themselves, rumors spreading like wildfire. Could it be a serial hunter targeting other hunters? Or something more complex and methodical? What made these disappearances particularly chilling was how close attention was paid to the victims' routines. Each hunter had their usual trails, favorite spots, and predictable schedules. Whoever or whatever was behind these vanishings clearly studied them. By winter, national media picked up the story. Ashford, once unknown, became the epicenter of a mysterious and terrifying trend. Interviews with families revealed one haunting detail. The victims all had one thing in common. They were meticulous, cautious, and trusted no one in the wilderness. And yet, none returned. Experts weighed in. Some believed these were accidents, hunters lost in rugged terrain, falling victim to exposure. Others disagreed, citing the unusual frequency and pattern. "No wilderness accident happens like this repeatedly," said one criminologist. "Something or someone is orchestrating it." And so begins our journey through the Ashford hunting cases, a series of vanishings that baffled authorities, terrified the local population, and left chilling questions unanswered. Who was behind these disappearances? How did they remain invisible in plain sight? And why did they target only experienced hunters? The answers remain elusive, but the story is far from over. By the time winter settled over Ashford, the town was no longer quiet. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the forests where hunters went missing, their fears magnified by the chilling lack of evidence. Every disappearance had one thing in common: meticulous planning by the victims. Yet the results were always the same: vanishing without a trace. Detective Laura Jensen, assigned to the case, began compiling files on each missing person. Michael Harper, the first victim, was an experienced tracker, known for surviving harsh conditions during solo trips. The second, Jason Cole, had trained in survival tactics and always filed a detailed route plan with his friends. And yet, both disappeared under eerily similar circumstances. The pattern suggested more than accidents. Each victim was last seen in daylight, within popular hunting zones, equipped with GPS trackers and walkie-talkies. Authorities struggled to comprehend how a predator or some unknown factor could remain unseen while abducting experienced hunters. Neighbors reported strange sightings, shadows moving between the trees, glimpses of figures on ridges that vanished as soon as they were noticed. Some claimed hearing unnatural noises, low whistles or faint cries, but no one could pinpoint the source. Paranormal theories began circulating online, but Detective Jensen remained focused on practical possibilities. Someone watching, planning, and executing the abductions with chilling precision. Family members and friends provided crucial details. Each hunter had informed someone of their route, expected return time, and emergency plans. Despite these safeguards, they disappeared. Jensen started to suspect the perpetrator wasn't opportunistic, it was methodical. Someone with knowledge of wilderness survival. Someone who could anticipate each victim's moves. Meanwhile, police procedural missteps added to the frustration. Some early leads were lost due to delayed response times, Evidence from the initial site's footprints, broken branches or disturbed soil was mishandled, reducing the chances of finding forensic clues. Media coverage grew critical of law enforcement, intensifying pressure on the investigators. One breakthrough came when surveillance footage from a nearby ranger station captured faint movements along the forest edge. Shadows, barely discernible, seemed to follow the hunter's paths. Analysts enhanced the footage and noticed patterns. A figure appeared intermittently in the distance, always just out of reach, never fully visible, yet always present during the disappearances. Experts suggested the figure could be the perpetrator or possibly an accomplice tracking victims, learning their routines and choosing the precise moment to strike. Questions multiplied. Was it one person or a group? Were the disappearances linked to some twisted ideology, or purely opportunistic? As the forest swallowed another day without resolution, Detective Jensen knew time was critical. The longer the investigation dragged, the colder the trail became, the more likely the next hunter could vanish too. The Ashford hunting cases were no longer isolated incidents. They had become a growing nightmare, a test of patience, skill, and human endurance. The forest held its secrets tightly, and Jensen realized that solving this case would require patience, cunning, and a willingness to confront darkness no one in Ashford wanted to acknowledge. By early spring, the Ashford hunting cases had drawn national attention. Investigators had mapped every disappearance, cross-referencing hunting trails, weather conditions, and last known locations. Yet nothing concrete had emerged until a breakthrough in the most unlikely form. A trail camera, set up near a heavily wooded ridge. The camera had been left by a local hunter documenting wildlife. When analysts reviewed the footage, their blood ran cold. Shadows flitted along the periphery, always following the hunters. Then, in a split second of clarity, the camera captured something unmistakable, a figure crouched in the underbrush, observing, calculating, almost human in movement yet eerily precise, like a predator studying its prey. The footage was enhanced and reviewed frame by frame. Each disappearance shared one common element, a faint, almost imperceptible pattern of the figure's movements preceding the victim's vanishing. Authorities now had a suspect profile, someone who knew the terrain intimately, could remain unseen, and timed their actions perfectly. But then came the real shock. In reviewing another trail cam, located near an abandoned logging cabin, the same figure appeared again, this time with an object in hand. It was small and distinct, but enough to make investigators realize these were not accidents. Someone had been stalking and luring hunters, choosing moments with terrifying precision. Detective Laura Jensen cross-referenced the sightings with missing persons reports. One chilling discovery emerged. The victims had all been carrying identical gear purchased from the same outdoor store in town. Could the perpetrator have been monitoring purchases, tracking routines, and planning disappearances well in advance? Interviews with local hunters revealed that many had noticed subtle oddities: bait left near trails, unfamiliar footprints, or unmarked tree carvings warning of danger but dismissed them as pranks or wildlife activity. Now, all of it seemed part of a calculated game. As investigators pieced together the puzzle, theories emerged. Some suggested a solo predator, methodical, perhaps even psychopathic in precision. Others believed it could be an organized group exploiting hunters' habits for unknown motives. Social media speculated, conspiracy theorists argued, but the evidence remained buried in the forest and fleeting camera frames. Families of the missing hunters were haunted by one question: if the perpetrator was so close, why hadn't anyone seen them? The answer became apparent when Jensen consulted with behavioral analysts. They were trained to remain invisible, blending seamlessly with their surroundings, leaving only traces the inexperienced eye would overlook. The discovery changed the case's nature entirely. No longer were the investigators searching for missing people, they were hunting a hunter. And that realization came with a chilling truth: the predator was not just clever, they were always one step ahead. The forest, once a place of sport and serenity, had become a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. And the more the detectives uncovered, the deeper the darkness seemed to grow. Spring turned into summer, yet the Ashford hunting cases remained unsolved. Despite every lead, every piece of surveillance footage, and every witness account. The hunters who had vanished were still missing. The forest seemed to swallow all evidence, leaving only questions and fear. Detective Laura Jensen organized one final coordinated search, involving local police, forest rangers, and volunteers. Drones scanned the treetops, search dogs combed every trail, and officers retraced every last known step of the missing hunters. But each hour that passed only deepened the mystery. Then came the most unnerving discovery, yet a small clearing deep in the forest, previously unnoticed. Scattered across the ground were items belonging to multiple victims: a rifle strap, a water bottle, a torn notebook. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, nothing to suggest where the hunters had gone. It was as if the forest itself had claimed them, leaving only fragments behind. Adding to the unease, Detective Jensen found subtle signs of deliberate manipulation. Footprints that ended abruptly, marks on trees that seemed more like messages than natural wear, and faint carvings that spelled a chilling warning: "You should have stayed away." Whoever or whatever was responsible had been communicating, taunting, and orchestrating the disappearances with terrifying precision. Families watched helplessly as investigators worked tirelessly, but frustration mounted. The local community was gripped by fear. No hunter dared venture into the woods alone, and social media buzzed with theories ranging from organized criminals to a masterful wilderness predator. Yet, despite public outcry and media attention, the truth remained elusive. What made the nightmare worse was the knowledge that the perpetrator was always one step ahead. Surveillance cameras, patrols, and search parties seemed to trigger no response. No mistake from the stalker. The forest had become a maze where every path was a potential trap, every shadow a threat. As months passed, the case file grew thicker, but the answers remained absent. Detective Jensen often found herself staring at maps and logs late at night, haunted by the idea that the hunters had been methodically removed, as if carefully edited out of existence. The forest had swallowed their lives, leaving only a mystery that would never fully be solved. The Ashford hunting cases ended publicly with no arrests, no bodies, and no explanations. Yet, those who lived near the forests knew better. The woods held secrets, and some hunters never returned. Even today, the story haunts those who venture into the wild. And for Detective Jensen, the chilling truth lingers. Sometimes, the hunter becomes the hunted, and some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. If you found this story chilling, don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Truths for more real unsolved mysteries from across America.